You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, the Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Evan Lang, and with me, drinking a beverage from a can, is Skyler Timmons. Skyler, how you doing?
Teeny tiny Sprite.
It is a teeny tiny Sprite.
It says 90 calories. I could have guzzled the thing in one go.
That sounds like a
my
challenge.
tummy hurts.
Can you down an entire can of soda in one go?
Oh, it's all those people that would do like the Sprite challenge where they drink Sprite and then try not to belch. And they're like, oh, it hurts.
Wasn't it like it was Sprite and something else? You had to mix it with something.
No, it was just straight up just Sprite.
What am I thinking of? There was like a soda related challenge where it was like you had to drink something
like
and
the-
then
It's
and then
probably
a full
like
can of
Mentos.
Sprite, and then try not to throw up or belch.
I don't know.
My favorite was the cinnamon challenge because you are essentially coating the inside of your mouth in a hydrophobic tree bark dust. And so your body is like, what are you doing? And it freaks out.
I don't like cinnamon, so
You don't like cinnamon?
not very much, no.
Learn something new every day about your co-host, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But we'll go ahead and dive right into it after that thrilling introduction. I don't know. Tell us in the comments what your favorite internet challenge was from your childhood.
Watching Rockies baseball in 2024. No.
You're fired.
Joke's on you. You can't fire me.
This is a 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
We're really good at this.
My mom says so, so.
Does your mom listen to the show?
No.
Neither does mine. Leave us a comment if your mom listens to the show. But, Skyler, it is that truly magical time of year. Spring training has started. There's actual baseball to watch and listen to on the TV and radio. The Rockies,
and it hasn't been terrible.
no, well, yeah, one of the games doesn't look like it was super great for the most part.
Hey, but nobody could watch or listen to it, so.
No, it was on the radio. It was on Oakland Athletics radio if you had an MLB subscription.
That doesn't count.
Does it not?
We're in Colorado, dang it.
I mean, I could have listened to it if I really wanted to. But I didn't, because I had the option of watching the game that was on TV today, and I would much rather do that. And it was a much more fun game, too. But the Rockies have played now 4 games this spring training, and like Skyler said, it's been a lot of fun. It's very hard to not jump to immediate conclusions, having to remember that it is spring training. None of this actually matters. And it's so early in spring training that, like, you can't go, man, such and such has looked terrible so far because they've had, like, 6 at-bats.
Yeah. Can't be quick to jump to conclusions, or, like, if it's not immediate success in the very first game by such and such, and they're not 4 for 4 with 2 home runs. Like, no, that's not how spring training works. Like, they're all easing in. This is the first, like, actual in-game competition anybody's seeing since the end of September for this team. So you always take everything with a grain of salt. It's only 4 games into spring training.
It can be really hard because you think about how guys played last season and you want to be like, oh, that's a trend. Like, I found myself falling into the trap of, man, Ryan McMahon really not looking so hot to start the season. But Ryan McMahon has had like 4 total at-bats so far this spring. And yes, 3 of those at-bats have ended in strikeouts, but he's also got 2 walks and a base hit. So it's just like, you can't, it's hard, but you can't fall into that trap. But at the same time, though, it's hard because you want to view the positive aspects as incredibly encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to, it's always when you enter spring training to just change your mindset of viewing the game and, really, yeah, Ryan McMahon, he might be working on something. It's just going in to get looks at live pitching, get his feel at the plate, get this timing and rhythm down. If you're established guys, they're coming in with a completely different thing than a Jordan Beck or a Nolan Jones, who are coming in trying to rebound after a difficult year. In other aspects, they're coming in with a different thing of, we're just trying to like produce and get the confidence built up, a rhythm going to carry into the regular season. So it's a case by case basis of players you become more concerned about or put more into as the weeks go by. Now, if we get to like near the end of March, getting close to season starting, and Ryan McMahon still has just looked awful at the plate, he's striking out every single time, then you can be a little bit more worried about how that's going to carry into the regular season. But
yeah,
early part of it, just enjoy the ride, baby. Have fun. Baseball's back.
When Nolan Jones has more than 5 at bats, then you can be worried about him not having a hit yet this spring.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be interesting to watch some of these guys because you do have your slow starters and your guys with stuff to prove. But for the most part, what you're looking at is this guy healthy? Is this guy, what mechanical changes is he bringing in? We saw some really interesting stuff today where Kyle Freeland has been apparently tinkering with a sweeper, and Tyler Kinley in today's game against Milwaukee has a completely new pitch. And we're looking to see, okay, what's changed? What's different? Are you healthy? Do you have something that you're messing with or trying to experiment with? Versus, are you ready to start the season right now? Which, here's a spoiler, no one is. It's February 23rd.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Kinley's new pitch, that 80 some odd mile an hour, low 80s curveball and splitter thing, how quickly will that get abandoned at Coors Field the moment he hangs one?
Probably very quickly.
And it's blasted 500 feet.
There's a reason there aren't a lot of famous Rockies curveball pitchers.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Austin Gomber.
Yeah. Herman has a decent knuckle curve, but
we're talking like big looping curve, or like a big slow looper.
Your big 12-6 looper that's going from up to down. You hang that once, it gets smashed into the rooftop, and you're just like, well then.
Kinley, that's an away pitch, Kinley. Do not throw that at Coors.
But I actually do think it's important for Rockies pitchers to develop certain pitches that they can use away versus at home. And Tyler Kinley's a situational pitcher, and he has a very interesting arsenal, and it's nice to see him experimenting with stuff. And then you've got other guys where your two starting pitchers that we've really looked at so far are Kyle Freeland and Antonio Sensatella in today's game, where for me it was, okay, can Kyle still maintain that little bump in velocity he got with his fastball? And for Sensi is just, are you healthy? Are you repeating your delivery? Are you finding your release points? How you looking? And they both looked pretty good today. Sensi especially, I was really, really pleased with, hitting 97, 98 on his fastball. He looks healthy. He looks like he's slimmed down a little bit. And that's encouraging to see. And you get these baseline expectations of things to look out for versus, oh, well, Kyle Freeland didn't get 6 strikeouts, so this is a problem. It's like, ease it back.
The main thing that I always look for with pitchers in spring training is mainly, okay, like, how do they just look physically, like motions, pitching wise? Does their delivery look good? Do they look comfortable out there? And then it's, how do the pitches, are they moving well? How are they working? But then it's mainly, are they throwing strikes? Can they actually throw strikes and command? Their command and control is what I always look at.
Yeah.
Because you see it. Evan Justice showed up, and he's one that I'm still not entirely sold on. Like, we know the talent and can see it, but that herky-jerky left-handed motion he has, it's really hard for him to consistently be in the zone, throwing strikes and commanding his pitches. So he could come out the next time and be just firing darts right there in the zone, or it'll be like he showed on a Saturday where it's cutting away from him a bunch. He keeps running inside. He can't find the zone. So it's like that. You got to find those things with the pitchers. Starters that we've had so far, starting pitchers, guys have looked good. Pounding the zone, quick, efficient, get through innings.
Yeah, and it's been mostly the younger guys who were sort of watching to see what their command looks like. In today's split squad game, you had a lot of the younger guys pitching against Oakland, and you had multiple guys who had multiple walks in their single inning of work. Seth Halverson, Jaden Hill, and Mason Albright, all with 2 walks. But you can go, okay, where they're still young. This is their first, spring training outing of the year. Let's see where things go from here. Versus your established guys, who, if Kyle Freeland came out and walked a bunch of guys,
Yeah,
I'd be like, all right, well, that's something to keep an eye on. Same for Senzi, but they both located really well. And we saw this with some of the younger guys as well. Look out for Gabriel Hughes had an excellent first start here in spring after he didn't pitch for basically all of 2024 until Arizona Fall League. He struggled in Arizona Fall League as he shook off the rust, and he comes in and he looks pretty darn good.
Yeah. No, I think as we move in here, that's kind of the big impressions from a couple of those young guys on the mound, especially in the starters. Bradley Blaylock as well. But Hughes, it's good to see him just back out on the mound. Yeah, he showed up in the Arizona Fall League, but that was more or less just like kicking off his offseason on the right foot of, okay, he's healthy, he's feeling good. We can proceed. We don't have to worry too much this offseason. He can prep for the year.
Yeah.
But to see him come out, get on the mound, throw some heat, in the mid 90s, good movement on his pitches, nice, quick, and efficient through 2 quick innings. He looked like a big league starter. The guy that they drafted in the first round back in 2022 and could have been on the fast track. Heck, if he hadn't gotten injured, probably could have made his debut in the rotation already or seriously be contending for a spot right now. And while he is kind of contending for a spot, it's more so we're just getting him on the right foot to where he can contribute this season, which seems like the plan. He's close. And he was close when he got drafted out of Gonzaga.
Yeah, remember how quickly he went up. He was all the way in Double-A Hartford by the time he had to get Tommy John, and that was his first professional season. Another guy who I am tremendously pleased with in his spring training debut, friend of the show, Ryan Rollison. 2 scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. He looks healthy. He looks sharp. And that's the important thing. All these guys who are coming back from injury, from Antonio Senzatela, your established big leaguers, down to the guys who really only have an outside chance of making this roster. I want to see if you're healthy. And this is what I like to see. And I'm really excited to watch Herman Marquez, who's going to be pitching later this week. I think his first start is going to be on Thursday, to see how healthy he looks. If you're healthy, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
And that's the big thing to start with pitching wise for the Rockies this year is, okay, is everybody healthy? We need everybody healthy to contribute because there'll be a lot of moving pieces at some point, because you want to plug guys in when you feel like you can and you need to, rather than, oh no, somebody's injured and we're trying to plug this hole. Oh no, now this guy's injured. And then all of a sudden you got a bunch of holes in your sinking ship. No, we're hoping that we got a nice sturdy hull and looking out for icebergs ahead.
Definitely. It's especially when it comes to the established rotation guys and some of the established bullpen guys. Luis Peralta looked like he hadn't missed a beat when he made his spring debut today.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Kinley looked good. And that's the thing, is just looking for, I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this. It's the little positive trends of like things that you can put in your brain of, here's a guy I want to watch this spring. I want to see how he does and get me excited for later in this season. And I want to give a huge shout out also to Zach Agnos, who had invited to big league camp this year, had his debut in spring and was great. rocking the long hair, the mustache, and the turtleneck, which was just a delight. And he looked good. Like, that's the thing for me is the pitching so far has looked good.
Yeah.
And I know it is way too early, but it gives you something to look out for. Of watch the pitchers.
Yeah, and that's what we knew coming into spring training was, okay, keep an eye on their bullpen pieces. What can these guys bring to the table? And so far, a lot of these guys are doing it. They're bringing some good stuff to the table, and so it's good to watch, both old and young. You know, Diego Castillo, a non-roster invitee, he had a solid inning the other day. Now, you're across the board, most guys are having good. There's only been a few blips here and there, like Jimmy Herget, not a clean inning, but Evan Justice, he battled through an inning, and just unfortunate that he ended up they gave up 3 runs on a sac fly out to deep center field.
Yeah, that was rough.
But hey, people, the Rockies won that game. Handedly so. But it's just nice to see these pitchers come in and kind of give you that hope and deliver on the goods. And you just hope, it's the hard part, is you just hope it can last and carry into the season.
Yeah, because like for Anthony Molina, we already know that he's probably not going to make the opening day roster. The expectation is that he's going to be in AAA and working on being stretched out into a starter. And for a guy like Jimmy Herget, who didn't have a great first outing, is that if he's not on the opening day roster, it's kind of just a so what move. He's a waiver claim.
Yeah.
Really, the only guy that gave me a little bit of worry is probably Jaden Hill, who had a pretty difficult first appearance of the spring, only made it 2/3 of an inning, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, and 2 hit batters. And we know he's got better control than that. We've seen him exhibit better control than that. So it's something to keep an eye out on. But again, it was his first appearance of the spring. So you can wait and see, okay, well, is this going to improve? What are we looking for here?
And he wasn't, and he's not a guy that's necessarily projected, oh, he's going to be on, he has to make the big league roster. It's like, no, he made his appearance last year for the first time. Great. But he's that nice depth piece that we just hope he'll get his time in 2025 with the Rockies.
Yeah, especially when
we expect him to start in Albuquerque. So
yeah, especially when he's a recent convert to the bullpen still.
Yeah. So the pitching side of things it's fun to watch. If only they could stimulate Coors Field pitching somehow, they're better.
Though, you know, the bats have been pretty fun to watch too. In 3 of the 4 games, the Rockies have put up a pretty decent amount of runs here. They got shut out by the Athletics today in their B squad game, but overall they've scored like 6+ runs in every game so far. It's been a lot of fun. And you have some guys where you knew they were going to come out swinging. You know, Brenton Doyle already has his first home run of the spring. He looks like Brenton Doyle. He's got a steal. He's got a home run. He's got some infield hits. He looks like Brenton Doyle. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, we're ready for that.
Out of the leadoff spot, no doubt, which is huge for him.
Yeah, and it's the same for guys like Tovar and really Doyle and Tovar were the 2 guys who I don't think there were a ton of things where we were like, we're worried about this guy at all during spring training, and they haven't really given us anything to worry about. So we're ready to rock and roll here. The big guy, the really impressive guy so far has been Zac Veen. Veen with an absolute moonshot home run the other day against Arizona. He's already got 2 stolen bases. He looks comfortable, confident, and healthy. And those 3 things are really important after the last couple seasons he's had.
Yeah. And so it's just fun to see some of those younger guys just stepping in and showing off the confidence that they've gathered over the last couple of years, because you can look up and down the list of Rockies prospects since like 2020, and a lot of hardship. Guys that haven't really panned out. They've been sidelined by injuries, haven't been able to put things together. They've gotten to the big leagues, it fizzled. Nothing's really struck lightning yet. But to see him come in and just continue to exude confidence and still trying to show, like, yeah, this is why I'm an electric player. I can do things like this. It's fun to watch, especially in spring training where you get to see these guys a little bit more up close and personal. They get better coverage. You actually get to see better camera angles on them. Like, love those minor league broadcasts, but unfortunately, they don't have always the best systems in place to show off those games.
Yeah, and we always joke about how, we get to the point in the ball game where the announcers are struggling to tell you who's on the field, but at the same time, I like those parts because you get to showcase guys that you aren't necessarily getting a look at.
Yeah.
We've had a ton of really interesting guys so far make it into games, including we had our first 2024 draft pick in spring training in today's game against Milwaukee, Blake Wright, the third baseman out of Clemson, who got his first base hit and made some pretty nifty plays on third base defense. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that makes spring training great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get to see guys like Kyle Karros, who's dude's getting close. I think he's shot up those depth charts, those prospect rankings, and for good reason. And there's a reason to be excited about him. It's nice to see Benny Montgomery out there being healthy and delivering some stuff. Yanquiel Fernandez, you get to see that big lumen bat and his lumbering defense on his legs.
He is a large man, but you know what? He made a couple pretty slick defensive plays, and I pointed it out on Blue Sky. It's like, Blue Sky, Yanquiel Fernandez is not known for his defense. He is very similar to Yordan Alvarez, where you put him in the field because he's got to play a position, right? But what he's really there for is that he is a gigantic and powerful man who's going to hit the ball really hard. But he's made some pretty decent plays out there.
You mean routine plays that anybody that can run faster than molasses would catch?
I mean, you say that, but then you look at some of the attempted plays that Greg Jones has had so far this spring.
But it's just fun, I think, if anything, to watch for the rest of the spring training, because I know the segments run long, so we can wrap it up here pretty soon. But the thing to watch is just these young guys. They've sparked rallies late in games. First game of spring training, they sparked a 6-run top of the ninth with mostly these young guys delivering big hits against, understandably, other younger players, but putting in good quality at bats and making contact. They're doing the things they need to put themselves on the map and just kind of jockey for position. But it gets you excited about the future, or at least a little bit more optimistic of hopefully, some of these guys can pan out and strike it big type of thing.
Yeah, and you get to my favorite part, which is trying to predict where these guys land. Because if you want to be hyper aggressive, you could put Kyle Karros probably in AAA to start this season. If you want to be aggressive with it, his most likely landing spot is AA Hartford.
Yeah,
but we've got the depth at that position that we could go nuts to it. AAA. Mm-hmm. Go strike it big, young man. It's that kind of stuff that I really like.
Yeah. And you can say that with all those young outfielders is, right field is kind of up for grabs. Not necessarily. Like, we assume Jordan Beck's got it. At least to start, he's got the inside track on it. With, of course, Chris Bryant, who will play there on the road. But these other guys fighting for position, it's like, no, I should get looks at right field. Zac Veen should get looks at right field. So they're fun battles, and it's just, there's that excitement. And I'm sure we'll hopefully try and get Patrick Lyons on the show. At some point once he gets back from spring training. I know he's been down there doing stuff, but maybe once he's back, we'll connect them and just talk about watching it. It feels like there's just a nice upbeat sense around that's being fostered by some of these younger players.
Yeah, this is, we'll close it out with this is a fun camp to watch. Like, if you've never watched a ton of spring training baseball, it's the same as what we've said many times, is that it's always a good time to start watching minor league baseball, but it's been a really good time recently with the Rockies farm system. And right now, because of how good that farm system has been recently, this is a fun camp to watch, because not only do you get to see your starters, you get to see the kids, and that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, it's just injecting some like new look youth instead of some of these jaded old men. They're like, another year of Rockies baseball. But you get some guys that are in there having fun with it, and like Zac Veen injects some fun into it. Like, you can get behind it.
Yeah, who's already changed hair colors twice since arriving in Scottsdale.
And an early contender for Bat Flip of the Year. So,
but we're going to take our first quick break here, so don't go anywhere. We'll continue talking Rockies spring training right after this. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. Thank you so much for sticking with us through that ad break. Real quick before we move on, let's talk that Zac Veen bat flip. Zac Veen hit this huge home run. He flips his bat and accidentally launches it at the pitcher.
yeah, tomahawk chop it towards the pitcher.
And you can see him kind of be like, oh no.
mm-hmm. Hey, and the nice thing is, Bud Black. Oh, we talk about Bud Black being the grumpy old grandpa. For him to be on mic in the middle of it and actually be excited about it and like embrace, like, yeah, look at that bat flip, and kind of praise some of the younger stuff. That's nice to hear, at least from Bud Black, who we can only hope is like loosening up and realizing I got to change the approach with this team and the direction it's going. And if I want to keep my job going forward, they got to get with the times, old man. The future is now. And like, no harm in it. There was no disrespecting in it. And he just celebrating like, yeah, look out that sweet bat flip. Like, he was the one who called it out too, which was fun on the broadcast.
Yeah, that's something I've really liked so far. So we've had one big interview with Bud Black so far, and it was during that Veen at bat. And it's been not necessarily a different Bud Black, but it's been nice to hear what he has to say. There's been a lot more praise for the young guys, and a lot more openness from him. Like, he's talking about all the young guys. He's talking about Veen and all the good stuff they're doing. He praised the ABS system, which a lot of the grumpy old men in the league are not necessarily fans of. Like, you've got Tito Francona going like, don't even bother using the ABS this spring. And for Bud to come out and say, hey, I like it, I think this is going to work well, is a nice change of pace. But also, he's talking about the pitching. He was talking about Gabriel Hughes, and no mention of, oh, well, he needs to put that fastball low at the knees or anything like that. And, there's still time, but
yeah, there's time for him to bring that up.
I really am hoping that we get more of that kind of Bud Black, looser and praising his young guys and recognizing that, like you said, the future is now. Like, it is the youth team. Yes, you've got your veterans. Yes, you've got, Kyle Freeland and Ryan McMahon and et cetera, et cetera. But more and more, especially as the spring goes on and the season is going on, you are going to have the very young guys taking over important positions.
Well, and part of that, I think it can stem back to Bill Schmidt, and that's been the messaging from Bill Schmidt, that he told pitchers, hey, we're going to put the 5 best guys in the rotation at a spring training. Like, if it's you and like these veterans, okay. But we're going to put the 5 best guys at a camp into the rotation. And so I think Bill Schmidt, using that scouting background, I think it's kind of seemed like there's been that disconnect where Bill Schmidt knows he needs to rebuild, but he's had resistance from Dick Monfort, probably Bud Black, who came here, went to the playoffs back-to-back years, and has been stuck in that mentality of, we're here to win every single game that we can and get to the playoffs, which, fine mentality, but you also have to realize how far away from that goal you are with the way he was managing the team and their insistence. We got to have his insistence to have veterans. I need my veterans. No, they're not helping. And so I think Bill Schmidt broke through.
And I don't love a lot of the moves that the Rockies have made this offseason. I think they brought in too many veterans. They brought in Nick Martini, Keston Hiura, the Scott Alexander, the new pitcher they brought in, Kyle Farmer, Owen Miller, Thairo Estrada. Lots of veterans came in for camp this year, and I can't help but be worried because of what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
But at the very least, they are, and we've been down this road before too, saying the right things. Like you said, saying whoever the 5 best starting pitchers are in spring training is going to be our rotation.
Yeah.
That's what you want to hear, because when Chase Dollander, who I think is scheduled to start pretty soon here and get his first
Monday.
start, Carson Palmquist, when some of these young guys start getting on the mound and showing their stuff, there's got to be an opportunity for them to make the big league roster out of camp. And it's the same for guys like Veen too. Veen's got to have a chance to earn a job out of camp. And I understand with some of the positions, like, and we'll talk about Thairo Estrada a little bit later. Thairo Estrada has been great so far this spring. And I said from the beginning that I like the Thairo Estrada move if they had only brought in Thairo Estrada, because I do understand the need for a stopgap at second base. If you're going to go with a veteran stopgap, you can do a heck of a lot worse than Thairo. But there is also such thing as too many veterans on a team that is rebuilding.
Mm-hmm. And it's finding that mix. Because if it's like Nick Martini and Sam Hilliard will be your starting outfield, two guys in right field, that's a problem. But if it's Jordan Beck and then Sam Hilliard or Nick Martini, one of those guys, okay, that's fine. But when it's finding that right mix where it's, now it's both of those guys plus Jordan Beck. Why do we have so many outfielders on the big league roster? Oh, never mind. He's a first baseman. I forgot. Except he's played only in the outfield.
Yeah, he's only played left field and DH.
But they listed him as an infielder, outfielder. But
Austin Nola has more appearances at first base than Nick Martini does now.
But it's stuff like that of, veteran guys like that. You can have like one or two on the bench who are just getting occasional playing time, and they're there to help. Guys, Kyle Farmer fills one of those slots perfectly fine because they have a plan in place for him. And a lot of those other non-roster invitee guys, they're playing for a spot, but it's mostly either an audition for a job. Hopefully when they opt out at the end of spring training and they look for a job with someone else, hopefully to find a better opportunity to move forward. Or they're like, no, I like being with the Rockies here. I'll play in the minor leagues with them in AAA. So I think the Rockies have in place the guys they want on that 40-man roster, because you'd have to do a lot of shuffling to get some of those veteran guys on. But I don't think we have to worry too much about them, Evan.
Yeah, but you never know.
Like, Austin Nola's the only one, like, for sure you're like, I don't know. Maybe. Depends on how well he does, because he's going up against two rookies, which have the inside track. But they've even mentioned, like, Austin Nola's been that mix.
Yeah. And it does help that a lot of these positions are locked down. Yeah. Like, we have a pretty good idea of who all is going to be in the starting 9 to start the season, with the exception of maybe right field. And depending on how Nolan Jones does this spring, maybe left field, but it's way too early for that. Versus, we already know Jacob Stallings is probably the primary catcher. Michael Tolley at first, Thairo Estrada at second, Tovar, McMahon. We know all of that. And like you said, the 40-man roster is pretty set. There's a lot of shuffling that would need to be done in order to make changes. And we already saw, the Rockies designated Aaron Schunk for assignment, but, they've been talking about how they took a risk on that because they didn't want to lose Aaron Schunk, but they did feel the need to bolster that bullpen. And on its head, we haven't really talked about it that much with the Scott Alexander signing, is it's not a bad signing, because he's had a very good career. He was good last year. He's a solid veteran lefty. And if you need to, when you hit the trade deadline, like they've done the last couple of years, is you trade him for assets. He's on a 1-year, $2 million deal. And it's a low risk, high reward kind of move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just shores up that bullpen, because then you have a set lefty, and then, we assume Luis Peralta has the inside track, but it generates maybe a little bit more competition for Lucas Gilbreth, Evan Justice, and Luis Peralta to battle it out for that final spot of this, because they want 2 lefties, supposedly. So,
which is better than the no lefties we've had in years.
Yeah, 1 to no lefties. They're mostly during the Bud Black era.
Yeah, there are signs. There are signs of development and change that we are hoping are real and genuine, because we want this ball club to succeed, and we also want, at the very least, just the Rockies to be not a miserable slog to watch for 162 games.
Yeah. 80 games at best. Well, half of the season can be enjoyable.
I'll take that
it's
compared to
just
the last 2
yeah.
years.
But like I said, the Rockies will do a lot of that lip service during spring training and say all the right things to try and generate excitement and hype up guys. And some of it is better placed, but it's once the regular season starts and the games start mattering, and it truly comes down to roster crunch time and figuring out to put the best product on the field, that's where we'll come back and like kind of revisit this conversation in a sense and look at spring training and say, well, they said all these things and they didn't do it. No, Chase Dollander absolutely deserved a spot. He was better than such and such, but he didn't break the big league camp, and now we have such and such, there instead. It'll once opening day starts, that's when we can finally give him that full grade.
Catch us in a month or so when they've named the opening day 26-man roster.
Yeah, because like I said, the Rockies haven't earned the benefit of the doubt. They do not have the benefit of the doubt, so they can say one thing and then they'll do something completely different and name Nick Martini as their, fourth outfielder and Sam Hilliard your starting right fielder with Austin Nola as your backup catcher. They'll do things like that, and we'll just sit here thinking, why? And so they haven't earned the benefit. We'll see what their actions speak louder than words, Evan. And we'll see what those actions have said by the end of spring training.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more you can say about it. It's wait and see time, and at the very least, we'll just enjoy the games as we get them. The only thing I really worry about right now, this early in the season, and I can't help but be nervous about it because it's happened before, is spring training injuries, where somebody gets hurt and then the Rockies panic and do something dumb.
Yeah. Jurickson Profar, come on down, type of thing.
Harold Castro.
You will make the opening day roster.
It's like
on conclusion when he had signed.
And honestly, it's like if there are injuries, that's an even better opportunity to let a young guy try and make an impact or do something. Like if, heaven forbid, Jordan Beck got injured in spring training this year, knock on wood, I would not want them to go, okay, well, we're going to sign Nick Martini to the active roster. No, then it's Zac Veen time. It's okay. Yeah. Next man up. Let's go.
Yeah, or, something happens to Ryan McMahon at third base. He has one of those freak injuries to a shoulder or, to a leg or something. Who steps in as the everyday third baseman? Do you want it to be Kyle Farmer? Could you figure out a platoon situation, something like that? Okay, yeah, you could get creative with it. Or you could say Aaron Schunk, your backup buddy type of thing. No, there's options there, and that's a good thing to worry about. Just please, everybody stay healthy until everything gets settled.
Especially with that rotation. It feels really nice to have 5 healthy starting pitchers going into spring. I would really like that to stay that way.
Yeah. I don't know.
You never really know. And like we've said, it's way too early. We have 4 spring training games under our belt at this point. Mm-hmm. And you can't jump to any conclusions. All you can really do is, I've liked what I've seen from such and such so far. Or this might be something to watch. Hey, Chris Bryant had his first outing today and drew 2 walks.
There you go.
Like, that's the thing. It's so early. And all I want to say is that enjoy it, because it's fun, consequence-free baseball right now.
For now,
yes.
There's always consequences watching Rockies baseball. The bill will come due someday, Evan.
The Bill Schmidt will come due someday.
Hi-oh.
We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. It's time for potentially another player projection. We've also got some hot takes from listeners. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I thought we were doing commercials.
Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. And Skyler, during that commercial break, reminded me of another topic that we have to talk about, and that is the return of the Colorado Rockies TV ads, which has us both pretty excited for that fantastic, terrible player acting.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we can save our ranking our favorites for another conversation, another episode, because there's so much to talk about, because our spring training stuff went way too long. That's just what happens, Evan.
It's not my fault.
Who's hosting this thing? Hey, who's driving this thing?
Who's on first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, commercials are back. Drew Goodman just dropping it right before the first game. Like, hey, or their first TV game. They're like, hey, commercials are back. Here's the first brand new one. And Evan, I have never have I been happier to hear any piece of Rockies news. It goes like Larry Walker Hall of Fame, Todd Helton Hall of Fame. Rockies commercials are back.
But it's one of those things where we've talked about it on this podcast. You've written about it extensively. We have wanted this back for so long because they haven't really done it since the late 2000s era.
It has been basically 10 years. 2016 was their last year of commercials.
And all of the memorable ones are from before that, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's really the 2007 to 2012, 2013 maybe. That's the peak era of it. And then it just, those last three, like 2014, 2015, 2016, they're very forgettable. I don't know if I've ever seen like more than one or two of them. And like, you can't find them. You can find a playlist over on the Rockies YouTube channel. There are 15 hidden videos. And I looking at them, I'm like, I know a bunch that are missing that are hidden. But yeah, it's nice to have them back. I was rummaging through some old ones, reminiscing.
Yeah,
good stuff.
And we've seen two of the new ones so far as I'm aware.
What's the other one?
They
Rocky Mountain Oysters.
They showed it today. It was Brenton Doyle on Love is Blind, where his blind date is his Gold Glove trophy.
Oh, what the heck?
Where he's sitting there and he's like doodling a notebook. He's like, I just want to prove to you that I'm still outstanding in my field. And it flashes and it shows like on the like a heart covered background. It's his 2024 Gold Glove trophy.
Yeah, I did not see that.
I saw it today. I don't know if they meant to run it today because for the Rocky Mountain Oysters one, they ran it, I think on accident before they showed it as it was supposed to be the premiere, because they cut to commercial, they showed the commercial, and then when they came back and were talking about the ads, they were like, and here's the premiere of the first new Rockies commercial.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird.
Interesting. But yeah, it's just nice to have them back. I look forward to see what all they did. I guess they filmed at Rockies Fest, so probably pretty quick to film those on an afternoon, but yeah, Ryan Feltner is not winning any Oscars anytime soon.
He wasn't that bad.
But
I mean, hey, Rymack and Gomber aren't exactly lining up for their Oscars either.
Hey, I look back at some of those old ones. They weren't bad. Like, acting wasn't bad.
Well, I mean, you look at some of the guys who've got a lot of that natural charisma for the camera. Like Spilly was really good in a lot of those old commercials. And you know who I think is going to be really fun if he shows up in any of the new commercials is Jordan Beck. They had him mic'd up during today's game, and he was a delight. Like, you look at him and go, this guy is built for this.
Yeah, or Michael Tolia. It's just plotting down with a big old plate of Rocky Mountain Oysters and like, what a good lunch today, huh?
He had apparently never eaten them before that ad.
Yeah. Hey, he's committed to the craft.
No,
Acting.
it's so much fun.
Acting.
It's one of those things where the Rockies have needed for years now to do more to show off the individuals on the team,
Mm-hmm.
and they're off to a good start now in 2024 with the return of the commercials. They've done a decent amount of interviews so far. You had Jordan Beck mic'd up in right field, and that was really fun. You got to do more to get people invested in the guys that are on this team,
Yeah,
and so that they know who they are. Because you know what, like,
mm-hmm.
the casual fans who are just watching on TV aren't going to know the team as well as, say, you and I do.
Yeah.
I played around with my friend of, hey, who's this guy? Of just like showing him pictures of guys from the Rockies, and some of the ones that I thought he should have gotten stumped him.
Yeah. That's the big thing is these commercials are a good way to showcase these young players and these players and their personalities and just even just a little bit, even through the facade of that. But it's them trying to, I guess, dig more into the inner jokes, running gags with the team. Because you look at some of those old commercials, that's what those commercials were about. No, I watched the Jim Tracy Manager of the Year one, where there's all the things like Jim Tracy says hydrate. Be sure to wiggle in the box type of thing. Or Clint Barmas takes the Jim Tracy cutout home to help his kid potty train. It's like, yeah, we need a little more focus at home. Or I forgot about this, Evan. The Jim Tracy is my homeboy T-shirt that Spilly and someone else wears. Oh, good stuff.
I feel like that's a shirt that we could bring back.
I know they used because I remember the Rockies had it, like they would wear it too. But yeah,
They wear all kinds of T-shirts.
but it's digging into those
The
jokes.
Purple Row Breaking Tea collaborative shirt for Doyle Rules showed up in the ad. Somebody's wearing it in the background.
Yeah, so it's you need more of those in jokes, and that could be something that bleeds over into promotions. Why isn't there like a Mike Honcho type giveaway for the season, or I guess because he's not settled that he'd be on the roster, so maybe they can craft something up throughout the year. But no, the fact there's just the 2 bobblehead giveaways. No,
Yeah. And
there's
that's
2,
something
right?
that this team has struggled with recently. And I think it doesn't help that the Rockies have been bad, but the promotional giveaways have been pretty lacking because you
Hey, a
look at
lot of
other
ticket
teams,
packages.
but you look at other teams, and was it Patrick Lyons who said, like, last year last year and this year the Dodgers have had more bobblehead giveaways than the Rockies have had in like the last 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty absurd number.
And you look at other teams, you know who just joined the Texas Rangers is Jake Berger. They already have a promotional item that is a Whataburger themed jersey, Rangers jersey that says Burger on the back, and it's got Jake Berger's jersey number on it.
Yeah, why haven't we done something for Kyle Farmer or Thairo Estrada or figure out some with Jacob Stallings? Who knows? But that's a conversation for another time, probably.
A
But
Tolia Toga giveaway.
yeah, the heck are we doing? Hire us, Rockies. We'll be in your marketing department. Promotional.
I feel like we could give him a hand. I'll give you a. Let's think of a bobblehead. Pick a player. Pick a player we're doing a bobblehead
The
for.
Chris Bryant, ouch, my back hurts bobblehead.
I don't think Chris would be thrilled with it, but you get a picture of Chris Bryant. You get a bobblehead of Chris Bryant, and he's kind of like bent over, and he's got a hand on his back, and he's holding
the Chris Bryant slipping discs bobblehead.
He's leaning on a bat like a cane.
Yeah, and here's his back discs, and then those are the bobblehead parts. They just kind of wiggle around. It's scientific and entertaining.
A little mean, but yeah, it's nice to have Rockies commercials back, and I need to sit down and rewatch a bunch of those so I can give you a proper ranking of what all my favorites are.
Of the ones they have available, there's ones that aren't on that playlist that I know exist. I don't know where I could find them, and that's what bugs me because there's a bunch that are missing.
That seems like something maybe someone needs to reach out to the Rockies marketing department and be like, can you just give us, the MP4s or something of all the ads? We want to feature them and just go through. I don't know. It's something we can figure out. I'm sure we can get our hands on them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll find him. I'll find him.
You just wait. I'll get you yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got about 10 some minutes here, Skyler. My question to you is, do you want to do a player projection or do you want to do some listener hot takes?
Let's do some more player projections.
All righty. Then our player that we are looking at for this year is one Mr. Thairo Estrada, the expected starting second baseman for your 2025 Colorado Rockies. And I already really like what I have seen from Thairo so far this spring. He's made some excellent defensive plays. He's been hitting well. We're hearing that his teammates are really liking having him in the clubhouse. Like, I'm delighted so far.
Yeah, that was the question coming in this season. No, he's replacing Brendan Rodgers, who signed a minor league contract with the Houston Astros, which says a lot that this former top pick that the Rockies held on to for so long can only muster a minor league contract.
Yeah, and also says a lot about how people were still, as of recently, upset about how we didn't get anything for him via a trade, when honestly, really probably the only time we could have traded Brendan Rodgers was right after the 2022 season.
Yeah, pretty much. But Estrada's coming into this game or coming into the season ready to take over at second base, and we knew the defense was going to be good. Now, everybody points to that Gold Glove year for Brendan Rodgers. That's more and more seemed like an outlier. You can watch him like, yeah, he's a good second baseman. Like he checks all the marks, like does it fundamentally well. But you could also tell the limitations of it, especially after the injuries and everything. Thairo Estrada has been a just historically much better, more rangy, more athletic second baseman. And boy, howdy, Evan, has he shown it off here a couple of times in his starts in spring training. Yeah, just nice, smooth.
Some of the leaping or stretching grabs that he's made, where you're like, yeah, this will work. Like, because we were, when Dick Monfort comes out and says the Rockies' infield defense is going to be the best in MLB history, but you've still got a question mark of how Thairo is going to fit in with McMahon and Tovar and Tolia, and you see him over the first couple games go, yeah, this will do. This will do just fine.
Well, then it points to just a little bit of a leadership role he can take over of connecting with Ariel Amador, who's talked about that, Ezequiel Tovar. They can look at this. That communication barrier is, a little bit more familiarity. They can speak Spanish with him. They can, have those conversations and connect with him a little bit better. And he can, in a sense, be a defensive mentor to both of them and help them continue to improve their game. And likewise, help him. But specifically Amador, I think will benefit a lot from Estrada just being around here in camp and whatnot. But defensively, he's fitting in quite nicely. And that's going to really help out during the year if he can stay healthy and productive on the field. And that defense will play a big part. But I think for me, it's the question for him is going to be the offense, Evan, is what can we expect from that bat?
And he's had some mixed results throughout his career. Honestly, he was pretty solid for most of his time with the San Francisco Giants from 2021 to 2024. And you look at the numbers in 2024, you've got to consider he played 96 games. He spent a lot of that year hurt, with a variety of different injuries. And it was basically his worst career season outside of the shortened 2020 season with the Yankees that he had. So in 2024, he hit 217, 247, 343. It's not great, with a weighted runs created plus of just 64. But in his 3 other seasons with the Giants, he's got 100 plus WRC plus. He's got a slugging percentage of over 400 each of those seasons, and on base of over 300 each of those seasons, and a batting average of 260 or better. Like, he's a solid hitter. And it's going to be, can he bounce back to more of what he was doing with San Francisco? And if you look at the projections, overwhelmingly, that is the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
For your regular Fangraphs projections in Steamer, they're saying 265, 311, 418. For Zips, they're saying 264, 311, 415. Both of those are saying about 14, 15 home runs, 50 plus RBIs. Like, he's going to get the job done. Is he going to be an incredible hitter? No, because he never really has been. Mm-hmm. He's not an all-star when it comes to hitting, and that's okay. What we need right now is cromulent.
Yeah, more or less, because you can looking over at StatHead, and I'm just looking at like comparisons of between Brendan Rodgers and Thairo Estrada since 2021, and boy howdy is Brendan Rodgers much better than him. And not so much better, but overall has just had more generalized success. In a sense, like we've talked about before, they're practically the same player. We've just gotten Venezuelan Brendan Rodgers who can steal bases. And I think that's the big thing the Rockies are banking on, is that you can maybe get some slightly improved defense, hopefully maybe some revitalized offense that's akin still to Brendan Rodgers, but with the added bonus of a guy that can get on base and then steal bases to help generate more offense. Because let's see, Brendan Rodgers, one career stolen base, where Estrada, just from 2021 to 2024, 47 stolen bases. So it's tough because like it's basically just Brendan Rodgers. That's what we're expecting back. Nothing game changing, just a Brendan Rodgers who can steal bases.
I think the other big thing with Thairo Estrada is that he doesn't strike out a lot. He is not a walk drawing kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Throughout his career, he only has a 4.6 walk rate, but he's also got just a 20.1 strikeout rate. And a big thing for him is he doesn't ground into a ton of double plays. Versus that was a real problem with Brendan Rodgers. There's a lot of double plays. His career high in a season for grounding into double plays is just 10.
Yeah. And I'm looking at those numbers still, like since 2021. It's a wild. You can look at these compared stats. 420 games for Rodgers, 408 for Estrada, 209 hits for Rodgers, 196 for Estrada, 8 triples for Rodgers, 6 for Estrada, 89 doubles for Rodgers, 67 for Estrada, 188 RBIs, 180 for Estrada, 45 home runs for Rodgers, 44 for Estrada, strikeouts, 358 for Rodgers, 308 for Estrada, 107 walks for Rodgers, 74 for Estrada. So you're not really, but at the end of the day, you're not getting anything. You're hoping to not get anything different than what you've already been getting.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder, why did they cut Rodgers in the first place?
To save about $2 million roughly.
That was turned around and spent around basically the 2 versions of Brendan Rodgers. So I can't. I find myself sitting here and thinking like, oh, he's going to do this and this. We've already had this. We're just expecting more of the same. Just same player, different name is what it comes down to for me, looking at these projections and just number comparisons between the two.
I'm really curious, and I am not trying to make any sort of spurious accusation about Brendan Rodgers or anything, but I'm really curious how much the idea of having Thairo be a mentor to some of the younger Latin American players and his club, because that was something they went in hard with this season, was clubhouse presence in terms of both Thairo Estrada and Kyle Farmer. It just makes me curious as to the difference between the two, because Brendan Rodgers, quiet guy, we don't really know a ton about him off the field or in the clubhouse.
It could definitely be just the Rockies wanted to just try something different with a different player. And, and you just hope that the support of a Thairo Estrada has a different effect on the team than Brendan Rodgers, despite having very similar production if they'd kept him there. So who knows? It's just one of those weird, like, oh, you're not really changing anything. You're just putting different dressing on the same old type of player.
Yeah.
Which, well, projection wise, like, we'll take all those numbers for Estrada, like a dozen or so home runs. Okay, that's great. Gets on base, can get on base at a 311 clip, hit 265 or something. It's not shabby. It's not terrible.
Yeah,
good defense.
You could do a lot worse than Venezuelan Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
And, I'm rooting for Brendan to, make the team for the Astros out of camp and continue his big league career. But at the same time, though, I do have mixed feelings about his departure because, like you said, I'm all for trying something new as a stopgap for Adele Amador or whoever's going to take over in the future at second base. But when the two players are statistically and skill set wise so similar, it's just strange. And again, I've said this, I like Thairo Estrada. And on its own, I like bringing in Thairo Estrada. It's just weird. This is a weird team doing weird things.
Yeah. It's absolutely wild. And no, honestly, like Estrada, statistically, the better overall defender. And we'll give him that. That's if that's something the Rockies really wanted to get a different look at to complement that infield even better, they felt Rodgers was lacking a little bit. That's perfectly fine if you want to keep the offensive production. But it's you have to really dig into the weeds to try and figure out more of those things that you could try and point to of, well, maybe Estrada doesn't hit as many ground balls or every which way. But at the end of the day, I guess you can just hope, and your expectations for him is just don't be a detriment to that infield and just contribute offensively and just help lengthen or just complete that lineup.
Yeah. And I will say, Thairo does have a lower career ground ball rate, but not that much lower. It's 47 something to 53 something.
Yeah. So it's the more you dig into this, the more you dig into just that whole sequence of events, and like we had to put Kyle Farmer on the list, but we don't have the time to talk to him. But he fits into this thing too of just
old Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, old Brendan Rodgers of just dressing it up differently, but it's still the same old thing. You can put as much icing you want on that nasty cake you made, Evan. It's still going to be a nasty cake.
I think my cakes are delightful. I think even if they're not the most visually appealing.
The times I have had, those weird people make cake using like vegetables like broccoli or cucumbers or beans. I've had bean cake, Evan. People made cake out of beans as an ingredient.
Who on earth are you commiserating with that's making bean cake?
But they dressed up the cake like they're like, oh, you'll never guess what the extra ingredient is. No, and they put this nice cherry frosting on it.
And it's beans. What kind of beans?
It's literally, it was like, I think they used just like regular like beans, like kidney bean, or I can't remember exactly what. But the thing is, yeah, the icing was nice, but it was still a disgusting bean cake.
It's still bean cake.
It's still crumbly, nasty bean cake.
I've never had bean cake. And whoever makes a bean cake, I'm sorry, should be in jail.
It's so bitter. Like,
go to jail.
It does not have the moist sweetness of a cake. It's just a crumbly, bitter, kind of dry mess. Ugh. And that's You can dress it up as much as you want, but it doesn't change what it is. And that's kind of where the Rockies are at with second base as they wait for Ryan Ritter or Adiel Amador to take it over.
For what it's worth, and I'll end it with this, pretty much every single Giants fan that I've spoken to is like, you're going to love Thairo. He's delightful, all that stuff. So I'll take that. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, that would be my thing and message to people is like, don't expect world-shattering, like different in impact offensively. Yeah, he's torn up at Coors Field, so you can hope he can build upon that, and that has a good effect. And like that he does boost up some of those numbers and outperforms these projections. But baseline, just expect Brendan Rodgers. Hits well at Coors, will struggle on the road, and he'll play good defense. Just Brendan Rodgers that can steal bases.
Yeah. No, we'll see.
Yeah,
like I said, it's early. It's 4 games into spring training.
Yeah, it's like we don't hate him being here. It's just a weird situation is all.
It is definitely a weird situation. But that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find Affected by Altitude and Rocky Mountain Rooftop on your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, be that Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or any of your other favorite podcasting platforms. You can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all these social medias, including Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube for the video version of our show at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
Find me over on the Twitters at Skyler Timmons, and then over on Blue Sky at stimmons13.bsky.social, and then writing Wednesday Rock Piles at Purple Row, and writing stuff at Fans First. They changed their domain. It's just ffsn.com, or you can just put in fansfirstsports.com. It'll take you to the same place. But yeah, you can find me writing stuff there throughout the season.
And you can find me on Blue Sky at EvanLang27. You can also find me over on PurpleRow.com writing the Monday Rock Pile and the Weekly Pebble Report on Tuesdays. Got lots of fun stuff for the season. We're really looking forward to having you all for another year of Rockies baseball. Again, thank you so much for listening, and it's going to be hopefully a fun spring training. But that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude. Skyler, would you hit them with it, please?
Farewell.
Oh my! Oh, hooray!
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.